Welcome to another RPG in a Box video tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create harvestables. This is quite a common asked question, so hopefully this will be useful to a lot of people. But this is going to show how you can set up a system in RPG in a Box where you can, for example, chop down a tree, get some resources, and then over time those trees grow back. Or maybe you pick something like flowers or something, and again, over time, those things grow back. I'm going to show you a couple of methods in this video for being able to do that, including a scripted way, which you can obviously expand upon with more complexity outside this tutorial. But this is just to sort of show you how to get started with such a mechanic. Okay, so I've got a couple of things already in place, which I need to show you because I didn't want to do everything in this video. Otherwise, it would take too long. So I'm just going to show you, first of all, what I've created ahead of time. And you can obviously create your own versions of these for your own needs. So if we go into the voxel editor, I've created an axe model. It's literally got no frames other than frame 1. It's just an object. And I've just created a very simple looking axe. And we're going to use this as the tool by which we're going to chop down the trees. I've also edited the asset library's tree model. You can get this from the asset library. Just go to asset library and type tree. Into here, it's this one here. So just tick it and click import and you'll have it in your object library. And all I did was I copied this frame by clicking this button here, duplicate frame. And on frame 2, all I did was I deleted the leaves of the tree, lowered the trunk down a bit, and then just added some debris around the trunk to make it look like there's been chippings of the tree on the floor. So this is going to be the tree when it's chopped. Okay, and then what I've done is I've created 2 animation names, chopped and grown. Chopped is basically this frame here on a loop, and grown is frame 1 on a loop. Okay. But then I've also made another single frame object, which is just a sort of stick bush. It's just basically for gathering twigs, basically. So sticks rather than logs. It's just two examples of 2 different ways of harvesting something. This could be a flower. This could be wheat. Anything that you can just pluck off the ground. Okay. So with that said, what we're going to do now is we're going to switch to the map editor and we're going to put some of these things in place. So first of all, I should also mention what I've also done is I've created a couple of items as well in the item editor. So I've made a stick item, which is stackable, and I've set the limit to 10, but maybe we'll increase that to 20. Same with wood. This is what you get from the tree. So this is what you get from the bush. This is what you're going to get from the tree. And again, we'll set this stack limit to 20. And then this is the item version of the axe, which we also made in the voxel editor. And I've made this a tool item. So the axe item needs to be turned into a tool. And the settings need to be interaction range adjacent. And the script is use entity script. Okay, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So save all of those. What you're also going to need, if you're going to use the tool version of the axe, is you need to go to Game Configuration. You need to go to User Interface. And you need to make sure that the tool item UI is on. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the axe. Okay? So, with that said, now we're ready to sort of put things into place. So the first thing we'll do is we'll put down our stick bushes that we made. So I'm going to select the stick bush and I'm just going to place a couple of them down. Let's say one there, one there. Let's put one over here and one, let's say, there. Okay. And then we will reconnect the lines up that it's got rid of. So I'm just thinking I want to be able to walk along this route. So I'm going to use walk and interact. like so. Okay, so that's placed down the bushes. Now what you need to do in order to turn them into collectibles is you're going to select one of them and you're going to go to where it says thingies. You're going to drop this down and you're going to turn the item pickup on. And then you've got two events. You could collide with it. So we'll leave this one, for example, as character collides so you can see the difference, but we'll have this as character collides. Then what type of thing do you want it to give you when, in this case, you collide with it? So we could give an item, which makes the most sense. But we could also give a loot drop. So if you set up a loot drop in the combat editor, in here, you can set up loot drops for various things like gold, currency, that kind of thing. Then you can have your item, when your object, when you interact with it or collide with it, gives you that loot drop. Okay, so that would be, for example, because with loot drops you can set a percentage chance of being given a particular thing. So like a 50% chance of getting an apple or something like that. So you can, with loot drop, you can have that sort of percentage chance be used. And then the other thing it can give you is a stat. So you can have your health increase when you pick up this object, or you could have your mana points go up, or any custom stat, whatever stat you want to increase. You can have custom stats appear in there as well. What we're going to do though, because it makes the most sense, is we're going to select item, and then the next thing is what item out of the item editor do you want this object to give you? Well, we want it to give us the stick. So we're going to select stick from the drop down list. How many? Let's say 6. It's going to give us 6 sticks. In fact, now I'm going to lessen that to 4. If you've got a sound effect that you want to use for, picking up the sticks, you can obviously set that in the sound effect option. And then what we're going to want to do now, if you want your bushes to regrow, is we're going to want to tick the respawn box and set a time limit for how long they should grow. So let's say, for example, they take, we'll leave it at 10. So it's going to take 10 seconds for each of these bushes to regrow. And we're going to do that on every single bush. So we're going to select this one, item pickup, item stick, 4 of them. This one, however, is going to be interact, so I can show you the difference between the two, and respawn after 10 seconds. And we'll do one more. We'll do this one, item pickup, character interacts, item stick, give 4 of them, respawn 10 seconds. Okay. Now I just want to check something. Let me just save the map first. Let's quickly go to the voxel editor. Can we set the object itself to be thingy? Yes, you can. So actually what you could do to save yourself some time is in the voxel editor, when you're making your, in this case, bush, we could go straight away and set this up to be an item pickup thingy with, let's say character interacts, item stick, amount 4, respawn after 10 seconds, save the voxel model, and then when you go to your map editor and you place the bush down, now it should automatically be an item pickup. You can tell because the icon over the bush is a key, which is the icon for a pickup. Okay, so this is already working straight away. It's already got the same settings as the ones we were setting up over here. So for example, we could delete this one and put it back, and it's now set up as a item pickup that's going to give us 4 sticks and respawn after 10 seconds. All we'd need to do is connect the navigation up so we can interact with it, because if you're playing grid mode, which this map is, just to show you that it works in grid mode as well, but if you're using grid movement, you obviously need to make sure the lines are connected, otherwise you're not going to be able to interact with it or collide with it. Okay, and both of those are necessary for this system. Okay, so let's get rid of this one. I'm not going to use that. So with that in place, let's save the game and let's test it. I think we're ready to test this out. So let's quick play. So here we are in game. So this bush here is collidable. So if we walk onto that tile, we pick up the stick. And if we just move off the tile for a second, you should see that it will eventually grow back. After 10 seconds, there we go. It's regrown. If we look in our inventory, we can see we've just been given 4 sticks. If we walk forward again, we can harvest it again. Let's walk forward this way this time. And then it should grow back after 10 seconds. There we go. So we could harvest it again. And we've now got 8 sticks. Okay, so it's always adding up. Now this one, we've set to interact. Okay, now you'll notice that if I walk onto it, it doesn't get picked up because it's set to interact rather than collidable. But if I interact with it, same thing, I harvest it, it's gone, and I've now got 12 sticks in my inventory. Now if I stand on the tile where the object is going to respawn, it doesn't error or anything like that, so that's just good to know. Those are the item pickup thingies. As I say, these can be, they don't have to be sticks, they can be flowers if you want to pick up flowers, anything that you would just walk up to, press interact or collide with, and the 3D model disappears, and then you get an item in your inventory of that thing, whether it be wheat, a flower, sticks in this case, whatever. And then over time, if you want, you can respawn the original model so you can then keep harvesting it over time. Okay? Now let's take a look at a bit more of a sophisticated system, like for example the trees, where we don't just want the model to disappear, we want it to change. Okay? So for this, we're going to use a couple of things, starting with our axe model. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab the axe model, and we'll place this down, let's just say there. It will delete the lines, but I'm going to put them back. So let me just do that. And then I'm going to adjust the position of the axe because it's not where I want it to be. So I'm just going to move down here, select the axe, and I'm going to go to rotation. And I think that's this one. Let me check. 90. And then we're going to raise it on the Z by, let's say, 6 for now. Okay, 7. That's probably good. And then we'll rotate this 90. Okay, now we can see it's a bit too high. That'll do. And then let's move it like that. Something like that. Okay. So we've got an axe that's on the floor now. Click off. Save. Again, we could have done what I'm about to do now. We could have done that on the axe model itself. So when we placed it down, it automatically did this, but I forgot. So what we're going to do now is select the axe. And just like we did with these bushes, we're going to go to Item Pickup. We're going to collide with it. So when you walk over the axe, we're going to get an item. We're going to get the axe. We're only going to get one of them, and it's not going to respawn. Okay, so you pick up the axe, and you've got it in your inventory. Now, remember that the axe is, in regards to the item, the axe is a tool. Okay, and we need, in order to be able to use this tool, you need to make sure in game configuration in the user interface section of settings that tool item UI is on. Okay, and I'll show you how that works if you're not familiar with it when we demo it. So the next thing we need now is our script, which is going to handle harvesting the tree. So what I've done is I've created a simple script called chop, and I'll just go over it quickly, show you what it does. So first of all, it checks if the tree has a property called harvested that's not true. Now, you could go ahead and create this property on the tree first. So we could go to each tree, or typically you would do it on the voxel, so you only have to do it once. But for example, we could go to this tree and we could go to where it says custom properties, and we could create a property, which is, a Boolean, and we could call it chopped and have it start false, okay? But another way is we could just check if that property is not true. Now, if a property doesn't exist, which is the case for how it starts, then this would still apply, because something not existing is the same as not being true. So this will still, even though the property doesn't currently exist yet, this will still fire, okay? So if self-property harvested is not true, so if it hasn't been harvested, then we want it to do a few things. First of all, we want to set that it has been harvested, so the game knows now that we've just chopped this tree down. We then want to play the animation on the tree. Now, self is always a reference to the thing the script is on. So when we put this script on the tree, self will be the tree object. So we don't have to specify the actual tree model or entity or anything like that. We can just use self, okay? So we're going to play animation. Self is going to be the tree. And obviously we have an animation then called chopped, which shows the stump and all of the debris around it. Then we want to give item 005 6 of them. So item 005 is my wood items. They're stackable to 20. I'm going to give myself 5 of them. We could maybe increase that. I'd imagine you get quite a few from a tree. So let's say we get 8. Okay. Then we're going to wait 10 seconds. This is the regrowth period, like we have on these bushes when you have the respawn option. This is the same thing. But we're doing it manually. We're going to wait 10 seconds. And then after the 10 seconds are over, it's going to play animation on the tree again, but it's going to play the grown animation. So it's going to show the leaves and the tall tree again. And then we're going to set the property back to false so that then we can chop it again because it won't be true again. Okay. Now, while it is true, if we try and chop it down again while it's still doing all of this, it won't do it because it will be true at that point. So this bit will be invalid. Okay. So this will ensure that while we've chopped the tree down and we're waiting for it to regrow, we can't just interact with it over and over and over again. Okay. So we're going to apply and save that script. Hope that made sense. And now we're going to go to the map editor. And again, we could have done this on the tree model itself before we place the trees, but I wanted to show you how to do it step by step first. So we'll do it on the tree models on the map instead. We're going to select one of the trees, and the trigger event is actually going to be the axe. Okay. When you make a tool and save it in the item editor, any objects and tiles will have an extra event in the drop down for all those tools. So here we can select the axe tool, and then we're going to set the script for when we use the tool on this tree to chop, and just check it's the right script. Yep. And save. Okay. So in our tool stat, let's just go back to our item editor again, in our axe, where it says use entity script, this is what it's referring to. It's referring to this script here, and this is the entity. So when it says use entity script in the item editor, it basically means use a script that's placed on the thing you interact with this tool. So the tree is what we interact with this tool, using this tool. So this is referring to the thing you use this tool on should have a script on it. So in this case, we put this script on the tree when we interact with this axe. Okay. So we're going to need to do that on all the trees. So let's put chop. Sorry, I put that on the wrong event. This needs to be axe chop. Same with this, axe chop. And lastly, axe chop. Okay, and we'll save that. And again, I should point out that you could have gone into the object editor in the voxel editor, and you could have just set that on the tree object itself so that every time you place a tree down, it's automatically set to the tool running that script when you interact with it, rather than having to do what I did, which is go through each tree manually setting it up per tree. That's because I'd already placed the trees down at that point. Okay, so let's go into game and see how this works. So here we are in game, and for some reason it's on free movement. Oh, I think I did change that, didn't I? So this is the tool item UI. Okay, now currently if I click on that, nothing happens because I don't have anything in my inventory. I don't have any tools in my inventory. So I'm left clicking on the hand symbol, but it's not doing anything. Okay. Now if I walk over the axe, why isn't that picking up? Did I set it to interact? Let's check. Why is it not picking? Oh, did it lose? I'm confused. Let me just reset it for a moment. I'm just going to put everything back to normal, just in case it's that. It usually works on grid, but I just want to see if it works now. So, okay. I'm not sure why collides isn't working unless I need to edit the collision and all of that. For now, I'm going to put this back to grid. Obviously, you could set it to interacts and then you can just interact with it. So we'll pick up some bushes on the way and we'll pick up our axe. Okay, so you can see it works, but I don't know what's going on with free movement. I'd have to take a closer look at that. Anyway, so we've picked up the axe. The axe is not respawning because we told it not to. We've got one axe in our inventory. And now because I've picked up the axe, I can click this hand icon and it switches to an axe. And if I keep clicking, I can toggle between using the tool and using no tool. If I hover my cursor over the tree, you can see the cursor doesn't change. Okay. But if I switch this to the using the tool, and I hover my cursor over the tree, now you may not be able to see it too well, but my cursor becomes the icon of the item. Okay, that means this object that I'm currently hovering over with the cursor can be used by this tool. Okay, and if I click, I chop down the tree and I get 8 wood, and in 10 seconds time that will regrow back to being true. There we go. And if I interact with it again, and I keep trying to interact with it, I don't get any more logs because it's currently chopped down. Okay. And then it grows back and then I can chop it down again. And likewise, I could go over here. I could chop these down, chop this one down, and then let's go to a different map. And let's just see what happens if we're in a different map while we're waiting for 10 seconds to pass. So we need to wait for about 15 seconds for both trees to regrow. That should be about long enough, so we'll go back. And you can see that they've grown back. So even if you're in a different map, when the respawn period hits, they will... they can grow back even if you're on a different map, which I swear has changed because that didn't used to work like that. And I was preparing myself to have to show you how you can get around that, but I don't need to because it apparently works now. So that's good to know. I don't know when that was fixed necessarily, but now you can apparently refer to entities outside of the map they're in. It might just be because the script is using self rather than a direct reference to an entity ID. For those that know what I'm talking about, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But there's two ways you can refer to an entity, by its ID or via self. And I wonder if it's working because I'm using self rather than a specific ID to an item. If I was using an ID, it might error in a different map. So One other thing worth mentioning is that if I chop down this tree, I still can't walk in this direction. So what you might want to do as well is in the script, when you chop down a tree, as well as giving the item, we could also, replace navigation, self, and then 2, 0. 2 is walk and interact. 2 is interact only. 0 is walk and interact. And I'll show you that in a minute. Let me just copy this. And then when the time limit is up, we'll put this back. Replace navigation self, and then we'll reset this 0, 2. So you see the navigation types box here where it says walk and interact, walk only, interact only, and pending. This is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so if you want a shorthand for your replace navigation without having to keep typing walk and interact or interact only, if you don't want to keep typing them all, you can just use the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. So in this case, I'm replacing 2, which is interact only, with 0, which is walk and interact. So that will replace interact only to walk and interact. And then this is putting it back. 0, which is walk and interact, will get replaced with interact only. Okay. So let's just quickly go back into game. So now when I use the axe, I can't currently walk any further because the tree's in my way. But if I chop this tree down, now I can walk through and over the stump. And then when it grows back again, I can't walk anymore because the tree's in the way again, but I can chop it down and walk in that direction again, okay? And if we turn nav on, you can actually see what it's doing behind the scenes. So when it grows back, it turns the lines orange. So let's do this tree. We'll chop this down. The line turns green, so I can walk this way if I want. Same here. I can walk this way if I want. And then when they grow back, the lines will turn orange. Okay. Now, obviously, it should be mentioned that currently this script is only really relevant for trees because we've got specific animation names like chopped, which may not apply to, I don't know, a rock, for example. You might want to place some boulders where you can hit them with a pickaxe and you get rocks instead of logs, you know. So, you know, you may not want to make scripts for every single type of thing. You might just want one single harvesting script. So what you can do is you can have a check of what tool you're using, and then if you're using a specific tool, you can play a different animation, give a different item in the same script. So I'm trying to remember the syntax for it. It might just be, if you ever want to know what something is, here's a good tip. Play the game and use print. So I'm going to bring the console down. I'm just going to type print player.tool. Okay, so that doesn't do anything. So let's just quickly check the documentation next. Look up tool. I swear there's a way where you can query what your tool is, and it might even be in the update notes. So help about changelogs. Problem is knowing where exactly it is. So I'm going to look it up off camera. A good resource, by the way, is on the Discord. If you go to the changelogs section, there's a link to a Google document, which is basically the Google document of all of this. And the advantage to the Google document is you can search it. So you can look up, for example, the word tool, and you can see where it's referenced in the whole of the lists. So here on the Discord is the changelogs section under RPG in a Box development. And if you go here, it will load this document, and then you can do Control F and I'm going to type dot tool in, and let's try that again. There we go. Added ability to retrieve the tool items currently held in a character's inventory. Oh, player.tools. It's plural, that's why. Oh, here we go. Added ability to get and set a character's active tool. Player.active tool. Okay, let's just check those then. So now we'll go back to game. And we'll print, just to test it, player.active tool. Null. Okay, so let's go pick up the axe quickly and just check that's working. So it should still be null. Yeah, but now let me set it up here. Print it. Great. We get a codex, which is got, you know, the item ID, the name, and everything like that. So good to know it's a codex. So if we wanted just the ID, we'd have to do active tool and return specifically the ID, like that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in our script. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our script, and now we can say if player.active tool, specifically the ID, is equal to item 004, I think it was, then do all of this. So we want to highlight this and press tab, edit. And then what you would then do is do else if, and then you would check for a different tool. And if you're using a pickaxe, then you'd have a copy of this, but the animations and the items would be relevant for that. So for example, let's just say we did have a pickaxe. I don't. Well, actually I do, I think, but I haven't set up any boulders or anything like that, so I'm not going to. But oh no, I've got a hammer. But you know, let's say this was a pickaxe and it's item 001. So we could go to our script and we could say else if player active tool ID is item 001. So if you're using the pickaxe, then you would have a different if. And again, you can have a different property name. Makes sense actually for the rock to be harvested as well. So if the rock's harvested is not true, then set it to true. And then the animation for rock might be mined or something like that. Give item, and you also give a different item. So let's say your gold or stone or whatever is 8. Give 8 of it. Replace the navigation with self to interact and then walk. Wait, and then maybe rocks take a little longer to grow. They take 20 seconds. Maybe they don't even grow back. You know, it's because rocks don't typically grow, right? But it's up to you what you do. But you could have a different wait time, and then maybe it comes back somehow with a different animation name. I don't know, formed, and then harvested goes back to false and replace the navigation. And then you'd have an end, obviously, at the very end of your whole if. So this would now give you the same script, but handling for different tools, depending on the scenario. Or in this case, we can just put an end here. And now this script will only work if we're using this tool and if the object we're trying to interact with is not currently harvested. Does that make sense? We don't currently need that because we've only got one item tool in our game at the moment, but it's just to show you that if you wanted to expand this system to allow for, you know, other tools without having to have a script per tool, you can put it in the same script and just have the game query what tool have you just used on this thing, does it, you know, and therefore play different animations and give different items, etc. Does that make sense? So with that said, that pretty much brings us to the end of the video. I don't want it to go on too long. What I am going to do off camera is I'm just going to take another look at this axe with free movement and just see what's going on. If I learn anything that's useful to pass on, then obviously I will. Let's take a look at, let's set this map back to free movement for a minute. This one is collidable. So character collides. And this one is interact. So let's just see what happens in free movement with the two of those. Yeah, so I'm being blocked for some reason and it's not picking it up. Thankfully, in free movement, I can walk around it so I can still get to this one. Now, although I can't walk onto this one, you can see that it says E interact. So if I press E, I can still pick that up in free movement. Okay. Again, I can't pick up this axe. Now, I'm wondering if it's because they need custom collision. So let me just take a quick look at that. So let me, for example, go to my bush model. And let's just quickly add a custom collision. So, oh, it might need to be passable. That might help. Yeah, so let's set it to passable. And that's probably the case for the axe as well. That's probably all it was, to be honest, not collision. It's because they weren't passable. So we'll just load the axe up as well, do the same thing. Because you can override the passable setting in grid mode by drawing the lines, and that's what I was doing. But obviously in free movement, you don't use the lines, you've got to set it in the model. And that's probably all it was. So let's just play again and make sure it now works. Yeah, so now I can walk over it and pick them both up. That's all it was. They weren't passable. And I will just show you, just for the sake of completion, my original intention for the axe was for this to be laying flat on the ground. So let's just quickly do that. Can't type when you've got these boxes. There you go. So 90, 90, and then let's set that to 3, 2 maybe. Okay, and then we'll move the offset here to 7, 7. Okay, save it, go into game, pick up the bush, pick up the axe. So even with rotation and position offsets on objects, they can still be collided with and pick things up. But just remember, in free movement, if you're colliding with the object and you're not picking it up, it needs to be passable. And likewise here, and I can now walk through this bush because it's not passable, because it is passable now. But at any point I can press E. Oh, yeah, but obviously I need to be further away. You need to be mindful with the interact. Let me show you that again. That the line is pointing to it. So let's just go to settings, show you what I mean. Quick play, turn collision debugging on, play the game again. So you can see this yellow line that's coming down at a 45-degree angle from the player. This is the interaction line, and that needs to be red when it's pointing at something. So as soon as it points at this and goes red, that's when the E interact symbol appears. Now what I don't understand, it works now, but yeah, I don't understand why when I was standing on it, it would let me press E. Let's just have another look. We'll wait for it to regrow and we'll stand over it. Yeah, even though the interact prompt is visible and even though the line is red, I think the line is red because it's actually now hitting the rock. You see how it goes red here? So actually it's misleading because even though there's an interact prompt and even though I'm standing on the bush, the line is actually hitting the rock and the rock doesn't have an interact script. So when I press E, it's actually trying to interact with the rock, but the rock doesn't do anything. Whereas if I step back a little bit, now the line is hitting the bush. So if I press E, it picks up the bush, right? And now the line goes yellow because that's what it was actually interacting with, okay? So you just have to be, if you want to just know why things are misbehaving in free movement, just put collision debugging on and check this 45-degree angle line and just see what's going on with that. Anyway, that would bring us to the end of the video on Harvestables. I hope that it's been a good introduction to it. 2 methods of being able to do it. The Item Pickup Respawn Thingy system, but also a manual system with, interacting with objects with tools and animations for, different states of objects that regrow and change over time. Okay? So with that said, that'll wrap up this video. If you have any questions, as always, on any topics I've covered, do feel free to reach out on the Discord. But for now, that'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial.